So one of the things that really slows people down when it comes to the leadership role is fear. With leadership comes the need to take responsibility for everything. I'm not saying you take responsibility for the things that you directly do or the things that you directly touch on. I'm saying you take responsibility for everything. Every single thing that goes on. If you have a team member who's late, that is your responsibility. If you have someone whose car broke down and they can't make it to this meeting, that is your responsibility. If you have half the people quit on you, that is your responsibility. Not everything might be your fault, but it is your responsibility. Now, the issue with that is the word responsibility and the way that's been framed for God knows how many past years. Whenever you hear the word responsibility in social context, it's always being described as a negative thing. It's you need to take responsibility for this, or this person's so irresponsible, or someone is going to be held responsible for this, or whatever it might be. But whenever you hear it, it's always in a negative form. So hearing this time and time and time again over the course of almost your entire lifespan, a lot of people associate the word responsibility with a negative thing. If you were to walk into a group of people and say, hey, who wants to take responsibility for this? Almost everyone shrugs away. They don't know exactly why, they just know that it's a bad thing. If it comes with responsibility, I don't want to touch it. And that leaves a huge opportunity for people who want to step up into those leadership roles. It doesn't matter if you're in a leadership role or not, if you're the person who's more than willing to take responsibility for as much stuff as possible, you're in a position to lead. What people don't understand about responsibility is that it's not a burden. Responsibility is essentially power. It's your ability to influence. It's having control over something. So let's look at this format. If you have a leader who's in control of a team and that team is underperforming, and that leader's supervisor says, hey, your team's underperforming, what's going on? If that leader says, oh yeah, it's my team, it's not my fault, it's not my responsibility, they just suck. They're not doing what they're supposed to be doing. I will get on them though, and I'll tell them that they need to take responsibility and start performing better. That leader has established that he doesn't have control, or he or she does not have control over their team because they just said that it's their responsibility. If responsibility is power, and I'm a supervisor and I say I want this to go one way and the person below me says that they want it to go that way and it ends up going that way, that means that person below me had more power than I did. They had more influence than I did. They had more control than I did. What's the point of having a leader who has no influence, power, or control over their team? There isn't one. So that person who refuses to take responsibility is essentially worthless. Why would you have them in the first place? Whereas when you look on the other extreme and you have a leader who's in place and their team is underperforming, supervisor comes up and says, hey, your team's underperforming, and she or he says, do you know what? That's my responsibility. That is my team and they're not making the standard, which is my issue to deal with. I have not trained them enough. That's my responsibility. I have not held them accountable enough. That's my responsibility. I have not offered them enough support. That's my responsibility. And when you accept responsibility, it comes with action. It's identifying, I have not done things good enough, and I will now take an action to adjust that to get things to where they need to be. I take responsibility for every single thing that they do. Me. I will work on with them to get it up to the level that it needs to be, but I'm the one who's responsible, I'm the one who has the power, and I'm the one who has the control. And when people hear that, they understand that you have the power and the control. You have the responsibility. So they see you as an actual leader because you're the one who influences everything below you. And when you, especially when it comes to the negative, potentially in trouble disciplinary type of actions, if you take responsibility, the people above you see that, okay, this person's actually leading their team. They're protecting their team. They'll go to bat for their team. That's an actual leader. When the people below you see that you're going to own responsibility for things that could potentially get someone in trouble, and you're like, nope, I'm responsible for my team, all that negativity comes towards me, they're going to love that. They're going to say, okay, this is actually someone who gives a shit about us. They are willing to put their jobs on the line for us. They are willing to go to bat for us. And when they see that you're willing to do all of this for them, that's when reciprocity happens, and they're like, okay, this person's busting their ass for us, we have to bust our ass for them. that is when you get the best outcome possible. That is when people start performing, not to the level that they have to, but to the level that they want to. Which is, I want to give my best always for this leader who is willing to take a bullet for me. And with that responsibility, that is when you get that team trust. That's when you can start to develop team culture because people are actually willing to work with you now. So responsibility in leadership is huge, but unfortunately it's missing a lot these days because a lot of people misunderstand what the word responsibility means. So if you want to be a leader, if you want to start acting like a leader with your team, it doesn't matter if you're in the role or not. If you want people to start viewing you as a leader, start taking responsibility for everything. It doesn't matter if you're directly involved in it or not. If someone's over there and they're working on a project and they screw up, you take responsibility for it because, hey, I haven't been helping you. Let me come and support you. People respond to that. They love it. And eventually what happens is that within any organization, there's a finite amount of responsibility available. That means there's a finite amount of power and control and influence available. And when you see that one person is taking all the responsibility and they're, succeeding because of it, your team's gonna be like, oh wait, maybe we should be taking responsibility too so that we can start to succeed. Eventually, you're going to get to the point to where everyone on your team is fighting to take responsibility for everything. No one's going to leave one bit of responsibility on the table untouched. And when you get to that point to where everyone wants to take responsibility for everything, that is when you have a highly effective team. That is when no one is blaming each other. Everyone owns up to their actions. Everyone does everything that they can to support each other. That is when your team starts to deliver on their A game. And that should be the goal of any leader, is to get your team to the point to where they start acting like leaders themselves.